for attending this evening. We're convening now the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee of the Baltimore City Council to hear City Council Bill 14-176R, which is a resolution entitled Informational Hearing Increases to Water and Wastewater Fees and Revenue Obligations. I'm Carl Stokes, chair of the committee. To my immediate left is the sponsor of this particular legislation and the president of the Baltimore City Council, Bernard C. Jack Young. To his left is Councilman Warren Branch of the 13th District, a member of this committee. To his left is Councilman Nick Mosby of the 7th District. To his left is Councilman Ed Reisinger of the 10th Council District, a member of this committee. To his left is Councilman Bill Cole of the 11th Council District, also a member of this committee, and immediately to his left or right, depending on which way we're sitting, is Councilman Brandon Scott of the second Council District. I'm sorry, I forget, of the second Council District. And so thanks, everyone. To my immediate right is Ms. Jennifer, I forget your last name. Coates. It's always been Coates, right? Is Ms. Jennifer Coates, who's newly on board with us, but that's not an excuse that I should have not remembered the last name. She's been with us many years prior to coming back on board with us, and she's staff to the committee. We're certainly very glad that Ms. Coates is back with us and brings all of the experience and knowledge back with us, and as a part of working with our councilmatic services. This bill is for the purpose of requesting the Department of Public Works and Finance to report to the City Council on the water and wastewater utility fee increases passed in 2013 to take effect in fiscal years 2015 and 16. The increases to the maximum aggregate principal revenue obligation the water and wastewater utilities have requested the City Council approve by ordinance the current status of the federal mandates to improve the city's water and wastewater systems, the overall capital improvements plan for the water and wastewater utilities, and to discuss assistance and programs available to assist those households that experience financial hardship as a result of these increases. We do have reports in from Department of Treasury, is that right?
Finance.
So the Department of Treasury has, in our bill file, have given us their report, which I won't read it at all, actually. The Director of Public Works is here, and they will testify in just a moment. So we'll now ask the bill's sponsor, Council President Jack Young, if he would speak to this particular legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to say good evening to everyone and welcome to City Hall. I introduced this resolution to have a public discussion on the state of the water and wastewater system in Baltimore because I'm very concerned about the cost and impact of capital projects on the residents of Baltimore City. Homeowners have seen double-digit increases in water fees, and the council has been asked to double the bond limit for water and wastewater utilities. And I know it's very important that Baltimore's water to be safe and well-maintained, but it must not be done at the cost the residents cannot bear. I look forward to a fruitful discussion on what the city is doing to balance the cost of improving the system while ensuring that residents don't carry the brunt of the $4 billion of improvement to our water and wastewater system. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the department has to say, and then I have a few questions to ask you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there any other comments from any members prior to having Department of Public Works present? Thank you. There being none. Mr. Chow, would you begin, please?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, and members of City Council. Before I start, I would like to introduce my team that with me tonight. Start with Ms. Collins, Marcia Collins, our legislative officer, and my deputy, Belle Thompson, and Kamasi Vines, the acting bureau head for water and wastewater, and Kim Grove, who is the chief of environmental compliance and laboratory services, and Ben Mealy, who is the acting CFO, and Madeline Driscoll, who is the asset management division chief, and Art Shapiro is our chief of engineering and chief of office of engineering and construction, and Kristen Alderdorf with the legislative office.
Thank you. Mr. Chow, I know I did it, but for the record, would you state your name and
Sure,
position?
I will do that.
Thank you.
I'm Rudy Chow. I'm the director of Department of Public Works. I thank you for this opportunity to tell you that all the things that we're doing in DPW to manage and care for our drinking water system and wastewater systems, and the challenges that we face to fund these vital systems. I will present information about our efforts to be a more proactive and more responsive and more efficient organization. How we balance our urgent needs with the funding realities, the fact that this is a national challenge for community large and small, the efforts that we make to assist our citizens mostly in needs. I'm going to go to page number 2 now. These are basically the photo. This represents the many of the functions that the Bureau of Water and Wastewater and Stormwater, these are our responsibilities. Going to page 3, I'm going to be touching on what do we do, why do we do it, and also how we'll do it in the following slides. First of all, what do we do? Many of you are familiar with the Bureau's responsibility. We are the regional provider of water and wastewater services, and also the stormwater for the Baltimore City. We own 3 reservoirs that supply the water to 1.8 million customers in the region. We operate in the excess of 4,500 miles of water mains in the region, and we also maintaining about 1,400 miles of sewer mains inside Baltimore City. And we also maintaining over 1,100 miles of storm drains. And these are the basic services that we provide to our citizens here. Next slide. So we have 3 independent utilities that managed by the Bureau. These are enterprise funds. That means the funding that for the water and the wastewater system and the stormwater system are independently, and they cannot co-mingle or coexist or interchanged. For the wastewater, we're talking about the wastewater treatment, the collection of the wastewater, and the water, the distribution, the treatment of that, and of course the stormwater. So why do we need to do this? Well, first of all, for most is for public health purposes. We want to make sure we meet the requirements in terms of the water quality that we provide to our citizens, to safeguard any kind of waterborne diseases, and of course safeguard the source of our raw water supplies, and of course the waste removal and treatment. And secondly is the quality of environment. We are in the center of the environmental, we being the environmental steward, our responsibility is a major contributing factor to the Bay cleanup that we are working on. So over the past 40 years, these responsibility, these missions has been expanded to encompass much broader environmental protection purposes. Next page. How do we work? We can summarize our efforts in these 4 statements. 1, we manage these high-risk infrastructure. These are underground infrastructure, and of course our treatment plants. Lots of time, these underground infrastructure are out of sight, out of mind, that we generally don't see them until something happens, such as water main break. We also increase our preventive maintenance capability to reduce operational asset risks, and of course, more importantly, to meet the regulatory requirements, environmental mandates that is being imposed upon us, and of course, balance all that with affordability with our citizens. On page 7, water utility challenges. First of all, average age of our pipe is well excess of 75 years. These underground infrastructure are nearing their end of useful life, and the fact that we are moving forward with our comprehensive asset management approach, which I will touch on a lot more so later on in the preceding slides, these assets must be maintained and serviced and rehabilitated. Otherwise, we could be facing with a dramatic increase in water main breaks and other failures, which could interrupt our ability to serve our citizens here. And it's just a couple of pictures that you can see. The one on the right, this is the photograph of a section of the pipe that was connected to the Lake Montebello. And you can see these pipes are not small diameter pipes. These are large diameter, carry significant volume of water. The next page, basically, if you look at the graph on the right, this is a representation of when these pipes were installed. You can see majority of them were installed well before the 1920s and earlier. And now they are all approaching end of usable life, and we are basically in that cycle of replacement that we have to, as far as our generation's responsibility is to step up on these rehabilitation efforts. On page 9, basically give you an example. If you look at the cluster of broken mains on the right, this is these breaks occur on the East Northern Parkway between Hartford and Old Hartford Road during the last 7 years. And this particular main is scheduled to be replaced this year. And this goes to the heart why we're doing the things we are doing regarding to increasing our water main replacement. The mains continuously to break, and we're band-aiding them, and ultimately they're going to continue to fail unless we replace them with the new pipes. So the cost to defer maintenance will result in what you can see on page 10. These are water main breaks that would cause property damages, not to mention the economic impact to the surrounding communities as well as the commercial space. And what deferred maintenance basically will lead to major utility breaks, and that will impact public health and safety. Well, and I want to reiterate and stress, this is not a Baltimore problem. This is a problem that we as a nation is facing, so therefore we're not alone. So on page 11, our water utility challenges continue with the ever increasing in regulatory mandates coming from EPA, from the federal government, as well as the state, that will require heavy investment on our end to increase our treatment capability, and as well as but most of these mandates coming with very little, if any at all, what we call the financial assistance. So in essence, these systems were built with a lot of federal dollars, and now we are facing the responsibility of maintaining them through our water rates. Regarding the wastewater utility, again, many of you are familiar with the consent decree that we are facing, that we signed on since 2002. At the end, when everything's said and done, we're looking at about $1.5 billion worth of investment that will be done with our sewer system. And all these is in concert of increasing the stringent and requirements to upgrade the treatment plants to ultimately protect the quality of the water in the Chesapeake Bay. Again, On the sewer assets, they are very similar age as the water system. They are well over 75, 80 years old, and is now at the end of useful life. And we have to beginning to replace them. And that's partially the reason why the consent decree that is being imposed upon us. So deferred maintenance ultimately will lead to a much more heavy-handed approach from the federal government and the regulatory agencies, such as putting us on consent decree. So our approach going forward, and certainly in the last 3 years and plus since I've been here, is us beginning to posture ourselves to be a more proactive organization, to do it systematically while we are in control of our investment in the pace that we can control rather than being mandated as such. And certainly with these wastewater failures, we have ultimately what touches citizens is the basement backup, or what we call the watering cellars. And you can see the number of water main breaks and number of water in cellar service work orders has been increasing. However, in the last few years or so, because of our very proactive, aggressive conversion of changing our culture from a reactionary stance to a proactive stance, we're beginning to see some improvements, and ultimately there's a lot more improvement is needed, but it's showing and it's demonstrating that our methods is yielding some success. I want to touch on how we are meeting these challenges. First of all, the creation of utility asset management division. Asset management is a very fairly new concept in terms of in the utility world. When I say fairly new, we're talking about in the last 10, 15, 20 years. In relative terms, that's fairly new in the utility. Many of the utilities are struggling with understanding their assets, because if you don't understand your assets, it's very difficult for you to forecast the repairs needed. And what we basically want to do is we want to stretch the usefulness of these assets to try to get as much out of these assets as possible. And that's through understanding, through forecasting, for prioritization. So this is all, the whole shift is from the reactionary, waiting for a phone call to come and say, we have a broken water mains, to perhaps understanding our water mains, the condition of it, and we can program these water main replacements in advance of these failures, and so that is really our goal. And of course, develop what we call a sustainable cost structure. By understanding our assets, we can begin to forecast the investment needs going forward on an annual basis. Of course, most importantly, provide the transparency to the ratepayers. As we come forward with these water rate increases, we want to make sure that we can very openly, transparently explain to the ratepayers where these dollars are going and what the purposes are. It ultimately is for their protection. And the one thing I want to sort of touch on is that the rule of thumb, generally speaking, anytime you do any type of emergency repair, it is always, almost nearly 100% of the time, is going to be more costly if you do it compared to if you do it in a plan, sort of bid out the process where you can get the lowest bidding in that. So what is the core objective of utility asset management? Certainly, I mentioned earlier, is to maximize, understanding your assets so you can maximize the useful life of these assets, minimize the system failures, get ahead of these failures, and certainly maintain compliance with federal and state regulations. We can demonstrate, because with our sound asset management approach, we can easily explain to our regulators that we have a plan, the plan is working, and it's how we will systematically address these infrastructure problems. And certainly provide a sustained level of service. Ultimately, this is about serving our customers. We want to make sure that we provide the service with the least amount of interruption. Of course, funding is a big deal. Now, next page, on page 18, this basically is just some example of what we call a planned preventive maintenance programs that is currently ongoing. It's broken down into the sewer side as well as the water side. Many of the new and innovative programs are being rolled out. The fats and oil and grease. Many of these sewer backup, the sewer backup into people's basement and so on, all that, are caused by the fact that people, when they pour grease down the drain, ultimately, it's out of the kitchen, into the drain, but when the oil cools down, it solidifies, it clumps together, which causes backups. So we need to make sure our citizens understand proper disposal of fats and oil and grease. So we are doing actually inspection program of all the restaurants or food service provider in the city. We're doing inspections, making sure they have these so-called grease traps in place to make sure they capture the grease before it gets diverted into the sewer system. Certainly, because we are an older city, ultra-urban area city, treat roots is a major problem. And those are fats and oil, grease, and roots generally is a major contributor to sewer backups. So we have a comprehensive chemical treatment process or program in place to treat these sewer mains to make sure we can making sure that the flows can flow through the sewer pipe without being interrupted. Certainly on the water side, examination of large diameter mains, and the fact that when we have a large diameter main, when it fails, what we do is after we repair it, we pull that section of the pipe, we bring it back, we examine it, understand it, so we can pinpoint and try to understand what caused that failure. So as a lessons learned, so to help us sharpen our tools and understanding of it. And certainly leak detection. From a utility stance, 40% of leaks on the ground are undetected. Means until the water surface, we really don't know they are leaking on the ground. And 40% of the leaks are basically generally is undetected. And so having a sound leak detection program that we can go out there proactively listening and detecting these leaks before they become a major leak is always going to be beneficial to our citizens. Page 19, this is just an example of, we have this pre-stressed concrete cylinder pipe. This PCCP pipe, if you remember the Dundalk 72-inch PCC pipe failure many years ago, which caused major problems for our system here. These pipes are generally will fail without giving any kind of advance warning. Unlike metallic pipe, they will leak, eventually leak get larger, and finally fails. These PCCP pipes, when they fail, it will basically fail without any kind of notice. It will just fail catastrophically. And we, as a city, we actually have about 88 miles of 36-inch diameter of these PCCP pipe, and then total, we have about 110 miles of PCCP in the city itself that we are responsible for. So that, to us, this is a major risk for us. And so we actually have a program in place. Just a couple years ago at the Southwest Transmission Main, we actually were able to detect imminent failure on a 54-inch PCCP pipe, which we took down, and in advance, ahead of its failure. And of course, we're not only looking at PCCP, we're also looking at the ferrous pipe, which is the metallic pipe. We are actually going through using non-invasive procedures. We're using technology to help us pinpoint these undetected leaks on the ground. So that ultimately, these sensors would collect the data from the sound and that running water in the pipe that allow us to know the location of these leaks, and so we can address properly. On page 21, in terms of root control, you can see out of the more than 6,000 of sewer segments that had received one or more root treatments, it's only 2.8%. had the repeat failures. So that proven that this root control program is working. And certainly if you look at the graph on the right, you can see over the last few years there is a downward trend. At least we are beginning to address these roots-related work orders or backups. We are also rolling out through our asset management division the sewer lateral inspection and renewal. We have a number of, this is something that we just rolled out the last couple weeks. And this is the beginning of this new program to target these, what we call chronic failures or the chronic sewer backups, water in basements. And so we can beginning to address them using our technology, CCTV, and to start inspecting and ultimately rehabilitate them or replace them. And of course, with our home warranty, extended warranty program, which we rolled out like a month ago, will couple to help our citizens here when we are in the process of replacing the public side of the lateral. The citizens, if they sign on to this extended warranty program, they can also replace their private side of the sewer connection or their water lines. For ultimately, it's the benefits to the homeowner. The fat and oil grease on page 23 is just something I've already touched on. That I mentioned about the food establishment service establishment inspection. Right now, we're actually seeing only about 38% of inspections that we conduct so far are actually in compliance with the plumbing code requirements in terms of the devices, the trapping of the grease, and so on, all that. Certainly, as the program, as we continue with our aggressive inspection program, as we go through the education process, we should certainly anticipate the compliance level to increase over time. On page 23, it's again just an illustration of the water main replacement. This is the East Coast Spring near Morgan State. This is a 12-inch main, and that just broke in the last week of July. And this main is, matter of fact, it's going to be replaced this year. So this main actually is already through our asset management understanding and prioritization has already begun the design before this last failure. So it says to us that a sound understanding of our assets, forecasting, prioritization does work, and we're not reacting. This is actually being programmed. On page 25, just a couple words on consent decree, because I know many of you are well understood in terms of our requirement about the consent decree. There's a lot of mandates upon us. That we got a large system over here. We must address them, and it takes a massive amount of money, revenues, and resources to meet this mandate, which ultimately is to eliminate the sanitary sewer overflow in the city. On page 26, this is the Back River Headworks. I have mentioned to some of you, may not be all of you, this is a project that we have defined and determined because there is a hydraulic restriction at our Back River treatment plant. We basically, in essence, causing ourselves about 10 miles of stagnant backup within the transmission main, by doing this headworks, we will remove this restriction, allow the free flow of wastewater coming to the wastewater plant, which therefore increase the capacity within our conveying system, and this will be very beneficial in terms of our ability to deal with the sanitary sewer overflow. ENR upgrade. MDE funding with the EMR, and this first of all, we are the owner of two of the largest wastewater treatment plant in the state of Maryland. And matter of fact, the Patapsco plant is the ENR construction is nearly completed. And matter of fact, it was featured on CNBC just a few months back. And we are now working on our Back River wastewater treatment plant to convert that to a ENR facility. When everything is said and done, these two plants will combine reduce 2.2 million pounds of nutrient that would be discharged into the bay. That it counts for about 30% of the total the state of Maryland's goal for the Chesapeake Bay program. Now, improvement in terms of water and wastewater maintenance, in concert working with asset management, where asset management is proactive, utility maintenance is more of a reactive maintenance. That means when the trouble call comes in, we'll react and we'll go out there and make the necessary repair. Having these two strategies combined will give us basically the complete holistic approach in terms of taking care of our infrastructures. I will talk a little bit about our capital program. First of all, majority of our water rate increases in recent years and also in the next couple years or so that is already on the book are mainly driven by the need for increase in capital investment. We have regulatory mandates that require us to do all these improvements, and not to mention our own reinvestment into our infrastructure. All these are very costly. So regarding to the water utility, the 6-year capital program from 2014 to 2019 amounts to about $2.28 billion. And these include, as I mentioned earlier, water main replacement, and certainly we own 5 finished water open reservoirs, which we must convert them either to underground storage facility or do post-treatment. The city is moving these open finished water reservoirs to underground storage facilities. On page 31 and 32 is a list of, of course, this is not the total exhaust list. This is some of the highlights that we have. Matter of fact, on the book, just for your information, for our 10-year program, our CIP program, we're looking at about over 1,400 projects, a CIP project that's currently on the book, and that needs to be done. And just to touch a couple of these and highlight, the Montebello, first of all, Montebello treatment plant this year marked its 99 years of birthday. It's been in operation for 99 years. It is in dire need for upgrades and rehabilitation, and we got the beginning to start funding some of these improvements. And that goes into the heart about the need to build this new Fullerton water treatment plant, the 120 million gallon treatment plant, which is going to cost in excess of about $500 million when everything's said and done, is simply to replace these aging treatment facilities that if we don't do anything about it, our ability to treat and to deliver clean drinking water to our citizens will certainly be negatively impacted. On page 32, just want to highlight that our water tunnel, we have the big inch coming from the Susquehanna to our water treatment plants. We're talking about lack of or not understanding through asset management. We got to do a better understanding of these large diameter, large assets that we own, because the failure of that pipe could impact our ability to pull water from the direction from Susquehanna. And certainly water infrastructure rehabilitation, the need to beginning to ramp up our water main replacement from basically non-existent to a goal of 40 miles per year. The fact that we can put the water replacement on a 100-year replacement cycle, we own 4,040 miles a year, can get us to there. Meter replacement. This is the AMI project that we are working on. The city will complete its AMI project by April of 2016. And matter of fact, yesterday, we just had a press conference and basically marked the beginning of the project. We're beginning the proof of concept that is going to start in September with the first 5,000 meters. Regarding the wastewater utility capital projects, 6-year, again, 2014 to 2016, we have a need for $2.25 billion, partially driven by, because the ENR, the headworks, and certainly the consent decree. We got about another $1 billion+ to go on the consent decree. We are certainly in the heavy construction period of the consent decree now. So in the coming years, quite a bit of investment needs to be made in that direction. Again, page 34 and page 35 is a list of some of the facility-related capital improvement projects, as well as some of these conveyance or the collection system projects. On page 36, this is what we call a multi-meter. This is the AMI project that I just mentioned. When this project is completed, we'll be able to increase our meter reading and billing accuracy. And certainly, the need to estimate bills no longer exists, because if you got snow on the cover up the meter pits, we can still get the reads. If you have a car parked over it, right now we have to wait for the car to be moved before we can take a read. That wouldn't exist. We'd be able to get that instantaneously. We will be able to enhance the customer service experience and our ability to alert customer when there is a leak on the private side, because the system be able to set up alarms as such, so they no longer have to wait for, like example, the current 90-day billing cycle to learn that through a huge water bill says, wow, I have an on-site water leak, and which increase informal hearing, administrative hand-holdings, and so on, all that, and a lot of anxiety could be eliminated. And certainly, all these is in the spirit for enhancing operational efficiencies. On page 7, basically talk about the ordinance, the need to increase our debt limit. We are requesting the water utility from the current 1.017 or a little bit over $1 billion capacity or authorization to over $2 billion. And likewise, on the wastewater side, about $1.1 billion to increase that to close to $2.4 billion. All this is to help us to fund these capital improvements and our ability to take advantage of the low interest, because our bond rating is fairly good, and our ability to borrow money from the market. And certainly without these authorization in place, it will basically cause us to cash finance these. And that means we won't be able to leverage the bond proceeding that ultimately spread out over a long period of time to a cash stance, which is going to be a lot more expensive, which will require us to increase our water rates even more so. And not to mention, not doing the proper reinvestment into our infrastructure will cause the regulators to step up on their enforcement actions on the city, which ultimately will lead to consent decree or administrative orders as such. And the next couple pages is basically illustration. This is a couple charts we have gotten from the 2004-2012, the National Rate Survey prepared by AWWA. AWWA stands for American Water Works Association. This is the professional organization that works with the water utilities. You can see that the need for capital investments for the water and wastewater side is steadily increasing. This is an illustration from a national perspective. And certainly, next slide on page 39, it shows the similar picture, the need to invest through long-term debt services to help to fund these projects. On page 40, this is a good illustration. You can see our needs from 1970 to today. We're looking at from an average invested about $24 billion to today, a much bigger needs on an annual basis, but yet the federal share of that has dropped from 39% to 9%. So what that means is that the locality, the ratepayers is the one that is going to be shouldering the maintenance costs of it. I just want to spend a couple minutes talk about this integrated planning framework. This is a tool that was introduced by EPA, and which Baltimore City, we jumped on this particular suggestion by EPA. And matter of fact, we are among the very first in the country that actually completed a comprehensive integrated planning framework document, looking at our capital programs, prioritizing them, and then perhaps, and basically in the frameworks, the spirit of the frameworks is for us to be able to prioritize those projects yields the most benefits. So that means whether improving water quality. So we want to go after the most environmental sound projects first, because we want to get raking as much benefits as possible, and but rather than let the regulatory mandates based on the time frame to drive that outcome. So this is a very positive discussion we are having with EPA and our federal partners, and they certainly have come a long way. On page 42, basically, it's what is listed over there is 21 criteria. We basically took our 1,400 projects, although we bundled them into a much more manageable size. We took every single project through this 21 criteria, and we scored them mathematically, numerically, and scored them and prioritized them. And so we have a the list of from the most significant, most important project, which will yield the most benefits to the city, to the least amount of benefit projects. So we can begin to tackle those most important projects first. Now, regarding the pursuit of funds, I mentioned earlier, certainly the federal fund or federal investment in the local water utility has dwindled over time. However, with our ENR projects, the state is actually helping and is investing more than $600 million with the Back River and the Patapsco ENR. Although, the city and the county, Baltimore County, we had to pay for our share of it, but certainly by far the regulators or the MDE is shouldering a large portion of that investment. And we are also, because the fact that our current borrowing from the bond market generally is 30-year bonds, and we are exploring the potential of increasing that from a 30-year to perhaps a 40-year based on the types of funding or the borrowing that we need. Because we all know a water infrastructure on the ground should last a lot longer than 30 years. So why the fact that if we can borrow for a longer period of time, spread out longer period of time, which reduce the annual sort of debt service, which will help reduce the rate increases, or at least the pressure of the rate increases. Page 44, basically, it's you have seen this before. This is a comparison to comparable size city. These are all cities that has urban setting, and it's older city, and you can see our water and sewer costs are amount by comparing to other major cities. We actually is on the low end. We are fairly cheap compared to some others. Of course, just want to mention there is a consequences, the fact that we are fairly cheap compared to others. That means what others are doing is actually perhaps investing or reinvesting into their infrastructure much more aggressively than we have here in Baltimore City, which thus we are facing the problem that we are facing today with the water issues and sewer issues. And that's part of the DPW's desire to begin to change the culture, change the stance, change the way we do business to be a lot more proactive. I have always tell my staff that it's just because we are a governmental or public utility, it doesn't mean that we cannot operate with the kind of efficiencies as a private enterprise. We want to be able to live in, enjoy the benefits of both, if possible. On page 45, this is what is the impact to the public? You can see, I'm sure you are very familiar with it, more than 40% of our population is below median household income. And this is a major issue that we are very sensitive about. We every day we take, as we're looking at the need for reinvestment, we're balancing that against the ability of our citizens to pay for those. And but ultimately, not reinvesting now is not the way to go, because ultimately it's going to be a lot more costly. More damages will be done to properties, or potential loss of life should something have happened unexpectedly. So we have to take a balanced approach. On page 46, another just example, 26% of our population lives below the poverty line. We get it. I'm sure you know it. But this is our challenge. So later on, I will summarize some of the things that we are doing to help our citizens here in needs. Well, first of all, senior discount. We are now providing about 39% of discount on the water and sewer rates for those eligible senior citizens aged 65 or older, and where their income is below $25,000. Now, I'm certainly very happy to see our community liaison that are out there and about in every district in the city, promoting this program is there to assist those in needs. It's actually yielding some results. You can see 2014, our participant is on the rise, and certainly the benefits that we are providing is on the rise as well. So that means we're getting out there, we're promoting it, we're not hiding the fact there is a program in there to help people. We're literally letting people know we got brochures in the back, so certainly anyone can pick up and apply for those if you meet those. And equally, on the low-income water assistance side, and also I'm happy to see the increase, the participant side, as well as the total benefits that we have provided. So we are actually very aggressively going out there. We are working with HCD, matter of fact, and looking for ways that we can potentially align our programs, so to provide a much better service and assistance to those citizens that need help. Rather than they doing their thing, we doing our thing, if we combine our resources and do it very systematically and holistically, will yield much better results that way. So we're having some preliminary early discussion with HCD, and clearly HCD and us, we are both very excited about this potential partnership, and we'll continue to work on that. So in summary, I would like to reiterate some of the various policies, procedures, initiatives, and programs that are either in place or being worked on to help the citizens in Baltimore and potentially lessen the pressure on the water rate increases. I mentioned about the senior and low-income discount. We're going to continue to float those discounts with the water rate increases. In the last 2 increases, we have floated. And matter of fact, the senior discount back in 2013 was at 30%. It is now at 39%. So it's helping. We'll continue to explore and expand our integrated planning framework on our CIP program to help us level out our investment, our asset management approach to minimize the emergency repair, which ultimately will yield savings for our ratepayers. I mentioned about exploring the possibility of floating 40-year bonds rather than 30-year bonds, and to help reduce the annual debt repayment. We aggressively pursue low-interest state revolving funds. Matter of fact, we just got word today that we just received $200 million of worth of state revolving fund to help our capital project at 1% interest rate. That's a very low interest rate. Ultimately, is going to be the savings to our citizens here. The rollout of the homeowner extended warranty program for the water and sewer services on private properties. This to help these fixed income senior citizens out there to manage these crises when they do occur. Our meter, AMI system, our billing system, all these to increase accuracy, to be more transparent. Working with HCD, I mentioned that earlier. And of course, reorganizing the Water Bureau to better align structurally and to roll out best-in-class practices to increase our operational efficiencies. Water rate increases is one way we can increase our revenue, but at the same time, through increase in efficiency gains, we can also reduce our cost associated with it, which also lessen the pressure on the water rate increases. And certainly a better trend and skilled workforce will go a long way helping us. And lastly, I want to say, we are aggressively working with our representative in DC on the Hill, looking at federal assistance and others, and we're having dialogue with those our lobbyists on the Hill, and certainly with other professional organizations that in the water and wastewater utilities arena, because all of us basically in essence facing the same thing. So we are banding our voice together. Hopefully we can beginning to make a difference and get some of these federal assistance. And that concludes my presentation, and I certainly welcome any question you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chow, Director Chow. We have several members of our colleagues that wish to speak, beginning with Council President Young and Councilman Reisinger and Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chow, this consent decree started in 2002, am I correct?
That's correct.
And it's supposed to end in 2016.
January 1st, 2016,
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has the city entered into any type of agreement to revise the consent decree? Because it don't look like we're going to make it to 2016. Look like we're going to go beyond the 2016 mandate.
We have been in conversation with our regulators in the last few years, and the conversation has centered around, from our perspective, we want to make sure we do the proper investment. We don't want to over-design anything that needed to be done, so make sure we stretch that dollar. But regarding the time frame, that is something that we are in discussion, in negotiation with the regulators, and nothing final has come out yet, but certainly we are working aggressively, try to come to some sort of accord.
Because see, what I was looking at is since 2002, we've been constantly increasing the water rate. And I was under the impression that as we was doing that, we was getting nearer and nearer to completing what the consent decree said for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like that looked like the work haven't, in my opinion, been done for the money that we have been paying to get the consent decree completed. The issue that I really have is the constant increases and salaries are not keeping up with the increases. We had a 15%, 11% water and wastewater fee increase that we approved on the Board of Estimates for fiscal year 2014, 15, and 16. So I'm concerned what the increases are going to be as we go into 2017, 2018, and 2019, because our salaries the people's salaries are not keeping up with the increases that we're asking for.
Yeah, well, that goes to the heart of the number of things I mentioned earlier. Our discussion with the regulators, certainly the way we are managing these projects now through the integrated planning, we want to make sure we do the most significant project first, get the most benefits out first, and also the fact that we're looking at this approach. And coupled with a couple other things, it's fairly early to forecast what kind of rate increases that we're going to be seeing comes after 2016. But all the things that we're working on currently are in the spirit of help and to reduce the water rates ultimately that we're going to have to come forward with. So we are not sitting back and just saying, well, we're just going to raise water rates. We are doing things to help offset our operational needs. And all these are in the spirit of helping ultimately, we don't like to come forward with these large increases. However, at the end of the day, these are investments we need to do, and we are obligated to do them. And ultimately, is to provide a more of a steady service, level service to our ratepayers. So it's a little bit too early for me to project the rates, but I can assure you, we're doing everything we possibly can to try to come in as reasonable as possible, and yet meet all the needs that we need to do.
Okay, on page 47 on the slide where it talks about the 39% discount, and it's for senior citizens 65 and over, that does not exceed $25,000 a year. That we have many conversations on can we move that so that it can cover more seniors, because some people are over the $25,000 limit. And I think that if we can move it, is this federal stuff, or can we do it to increase the limit?
We can certainly, matter of fact, we are working on that. This is the conversation that we are having with HCD. From a city perspective, we want to make sure that we and others are the agencies that provide this so-called assistance programs.
I asked them too.
Yeah,
I asked housing. I asked all of them the same question I'm asking you. That $25,000 been there for years.
Right.
And it was based on the economy at that time. This $25,000 now could be 50, really.
We are.
I mean, I'm not talking about raising it to 50, but I'm saying we need to look at increasing it to at least $30,000 or $32,000, so that some of our seniors who are at the max can really benefit and get the same type of break that everybody else is getting.
I understand. Matter of fact, in our conversation, I assured you that I'm certainly open to looking at that $25,000, but I want to make sure that whatever I raise to, I can defend that, and so if I raise to 30,000, I don't get the same issue about someone's making $30,001 and all some miss that. I want to make sure it's a sound program, it's a consistent, systematic program that I can defend. I can, so that is something that we are working on, but we are.
Because $25,000 that's been for years.
Yeah, I understand.
And we need to really look at that seriously, because a lot of people are falling through the cracks. And I'm quite sure some of them are still losing their homes over the high cost of water and sewage. and it's not keeping up with their monthly money that they're getting from Social Security. Because some of them are not getting other pensions; they're just getting Social Security.
Understand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
You good? Thank you, Council President. Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Child, just to go on to the add on to the president's point for just a second, will you be able to provide to the chairman of the committee rate increases in those other cities that you mentioned in the presentation to see how we align, as far as we know how much we align with them as far as general rates, but the actual rate increases, especially if they're under similar consent decree, so we can see how we align with other major cities, because you provide that to the chair of the committee. Thank you. But then for my questions, you talked about the sewer lateral inspection program that you guys just rolled out this week. Can you tell us how that's going to be actually rolled out, where you guys will be focusing first in areas that have had a high number of SRs for sewer backups? How are you guys going to actually roll that out into the community?
Well, first of all, we have work order histories so we know house by house these chronic areas are. So those are what we call the hot list. That's where the starting point is. We're going to go after those, inspecting those, and then and then once that is done, we're going to expand system wide.
Thank you.
Very systematic approach.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing that. Along the same lines, when we're doing all of this work, be it water main replacement, water meter replacement, and things that cause us to dig up the street, are you guys looking to work, or have you been working with agencies like DOT, for example, to see if they're planning to already repave that street that summer, if you guys are going to be taking up the street, because technically you're responsible for putting it back, but it would make sense for the taxpayers and for us if you guys could co-align those things to happen at the same time, so that we're not spending the same money twice, so to speak.
Absolutely. Through our utility sort of coordination meetings, where utilities, we put all of our utility projects online, so it's DOT. So we're beginning to see if we get into the same areas. And matter of fact, we take advantage of the fact that they're doing road resurfacing. So while you're there, how about replace the water main?
Right.
So we do this cost sort of sharing. But by all means, we understand that will give us the most efficient way to go about, and we are definitely working with them aggressively on that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Councilman? Councilman Young, Council President Young, rather.
This will be my final question, because I want to hear what the public has to say. But the current request that's before the council for the water and wastewater debt limits, would that be sufficient to complete most of the work?
This increase is based on our 6-year capital improvement program, based on our forecast. It's for the next 6 years.
Okay, so that means in 6 more years you might be coming back asking for more?
There is that possibility, I have to say. I mean, but the thing is that hopefully within 6 years, remember that some of these regulatory-driven mandates, we are, and certainly consent decree is in the construction phase. The cover tanks and the Back River, some of these very significant large projects will be completed by the end of the 6 years. So that means that going forward, we shouldn't have, other than, for example, Fullerton, something that huge, talking about new water plants. So we're looking at going out 10 years, the projects. A lot of large projects are staggered in the early years, which is what we're looking at right now. But if you look at the next 6 years, with these regulatory-driven projects out of the way, the need for that would not be there.
Because what I'm trying to really figure out is, I don't know about anybody else, I'm sick and tired of hearing about the consent decree that seems like it never ends. 2016 was the deadline, and we're still talking about a consent decree. And most of the consent decree, I know it's not your fault, unfunded mandates. So we need to be working or put more pressure on our federal officials to make sure that they clearly articulate that poor cities like Baltimore cannot sustain all these increases and these unfunded mandates handed down by the federal government. Because I want to see the consent decree end at some time. Because we can't keep telling the citizens that every time we increase rates or that we want to do improvements, that it's the consent decree. I'm tired of the song. I want to get a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that we have all said in the utility world, first of all, Baltimore City is one of those early consent decree recipients. And so there have been a lot of lessons learned since our consent decree went into play. The talk among the utility world is that, well, will consent decree ever end? Would the fact that sanitary sewer overflows and so on, all that, what our posture is, we will make sure our program is sound and reasonable, practical, so we actually can demonstrate to the regulators our holistic approach, our systematic approach will bring about a better environmental environment for the city in the coming years. Rather than, for example, many other cities, perhaps is window dressing, they don't do as much as they should have. We don't want, I certainly now is in charge of the DPW, I don't want us to be in consent decree ever again. And that's the part of the reason why we're doing all the things we are doing. We're being aggressive about changing our culture, changing about the way we operate from reactionary to proactive. All this is for the purpose of preventing the next consent decree, because we had to be able to demonstrate to not only to our citizens but to the regulators that we will be able to provide good drinking water, and we also can take away the wastewater and clean it and put it back in the environment in a sound manner. By not doing that, I can guarantee you that we will be facing the next consent decree somewhere down the road. So this is about resetting our system here to put us on a strategic plan so we are actually in charge of how and when we want to invest and what to invest, rather than being told what to invest and when to invest.
Okay, I think it was you was here, Jennifer, 1997 or even 1998, before the water started, being a
You're talking about Clean Water Act.
Yeah, before it became a lucrative business.
Oh.
I introduced a bill, I think you remember, bottle our own water and call it Montebello water. It was before Coca-Cola came out with the Sani water. Everybody laughed at me like I was some crazy person. And I'm serious about that. Remember that? They ridiculed me. But it's a 1 billion, or might be more than that, industry. And we have some of the best water. Are we looking at bottling our own water? I mean, Montebello is where our spring used to be, where everyone used to go get their water. I mean, that's Montebello. We can bottle our own water and sell our own water. And we need to be looking at that.
Yeah,
and before the Kuntz plant was in disrepair, I had suggested that we buy that from them, and because they had the bottling facility there, and bottle our own water. We missed out on a great opportunity because everybody is selling water. And look what they charge for water.
Understand. Yep.
And the president is on to something and was on to something almost 2 decades ago. Obviously, you probably know that Giant Food sold Baltimore's bottled water, sold Baltimore's tap water as their own bottled water.
Yep.
And obviously put right on the label, Baltimore's tap water. And of course, the whole industry is a scam, but I shouldn't say things like that live on television. But you're used to me by now. So the president is really onto something there in terms of bottling our own water, which is counted as some of the best water in the United States still. Let me just follow up a little bit. How much have we been receiving from the federal government over the last decade or so?
I mean, we can certainly get you those exact figures in terms of, how much state revolving fund we've been getting, how many of those forgiven loans that we get from the federal level, and so on. I mean, it's a mixed boat. But I would say, going back in time, this system was built, in essence, mainly with federal dollars.
Yeah, got that. But since we've had these federal mandates that, as the president mentioned, are pretty much unfunded, how much have they been contributing to their new regulations and rules and mandates to cover all of the reservoirs, for example, to clean the Chesapeake Bay, which is state and federal, but the state acted after the feds said do this. So since all of the mandates of the last, decade, 2 decades have been going on, how much have we been receiving year by year? Could you get that to us?
We can do that. I mean, but certainly by far the biggest investment that they have made is the ENR. And others, like cover tanks and those, we apply on an annual basis with the state to compete for those state revolving funds. And we're very fortunate, today we just got the word, we got the $200 million. We have been very aggressive. In the past, we haven't been that aggressive because these are low interest loans. And sometimes we apply for these loan forgiven or interest or principal forgiven loans that from the state as well. So we are actually very aggressive pursuing those, but for example, the cover tanks, they don't come with $1. I mean, it's all city. But the city is trying to get the dollar from the state level with a low interest rather than going to the bond market, because the bond market, we will pay like 5% interest. The $200 million loan we just got today is 1%. So I mean, we, in essence, saving some interest there, but those are the stuff, but generally they don't come say, here's a mandate, here's the dollar. It's not much.
Yeah,
But we can certainly get that.
We're looking for some no percent money, obviously. It's what we need to. There are a couple other quick questions, if I
Okay.
might. Could you explain for the TV audience particularly, there's a great belief that the Baltimore County is getting the same water that the Baltimore City residents are getting, and yet the county residents are paying less for their water than Baltimore City residents are paying. Can you speak to that?
Sure, and that's actually it's not true. First of all, our water bill, because we are enterprise, so our water bills is holistic in terms of the operation, maintenance, capital, investments, administrative charge, all that is fully loaded. The Baltimore County's water bills is the water itself, but in their property tax, that's where the capital improvement programs and all that. So if you add up all the various sort of fund sources that people pay into is water related. If you add them all up, they're actually slightly above ours.
Okay, now let me tell a piece that has some truth to it, and that is I think the last time we passed on a rate hike to Baltimore County, the county executive cabinet says, I'm not going to have my residents absorb all of that. The county will pick up some of that, and my residents will not do that. Does that seem correct to your memory? Jibe with what I'm saying, or no?
Well, first of all, how...
Again, what I'm saying is that apparently they're taking money from operation to pay part of their residents' water bill, and they don't pass on the total increase to their residents. Does that sound correct or no? And does law, charter prevent us from doing that?
No, I mean, we are passing on that rate increases to Baltimore County. So we trued up with them. That means the Baltimore County will pay us for those. how they in turn charging their residents. They want to absorb those increases through their general fund with other funds and all that. That's within the county's control, and that's their call.
So are we forced to have our operation pay for itself through its fees as opposed to having the ability to take money from operations in city from the general fund and subsidize the residents?
Well, we first of all, we're not allowed to use general fund for that purpose. That's the reason why we established enterprise fund. We had to be self-sufficient, so we couldn't do that.
All right, I'm going to go to Councilman Branch, and then we'll go.
On that one issue, can I dovetail on that about Baltimore?
Yes, okay. We'll go to Council President.
Just on the Baltimore County thing, because everywhere I go, I get beat up with that question. But could you talk about where we don't pay for the footage and they pay for the footage for water and sewer that's on their tax bill?
Yeah, so
Because you didn't talk about that.
You're referring to what we call the front foot benefits, so that means when they lay water lines to serve the residents, and ultimately that has to be paid for by the residents. Where we, in our cases, in our system, no, we don't charge the front foot benefits.
And is there any way that you all can send that link to all the council members so that when they get those kind of questions, they can send, the constituent the data so that they
Absolutely.
can see for themselves where we don't pay for square footage
Right.
and they do on their tax bill.
Yeah,
those
we
kind of things.
actually
they
have
brag, county people brag, my water bill is $13. They
Yeah.
brag on that stuff.
we do have actually a brochure that we can certainly disseminate that.
Thanks, Director. Councilman Branch.
Thank you. It's always good to talk to you, Director. Mine is more so the infrastructure of the agency. When you have those water main breaks within the city line and they retrieve those elements, what are those pipes usually made of? Are they brass, copper?
Well, the early years were built with the cast iron pipe. And certainly, recent years, the last 30, 40 years or so, the industry switched over to what we call the ductile iron pipes. These are pipes a little bit more flexible, thinner walls, and all that. But where the cast iron pipe generally is less flexible, more rigid, but they are thicker. So the fact that these cast iron pipe that was built 100 years ago is still in service is because it has plenty of metal there, and but today it's because with the ductile iron pipe it's much thinner and so on. But those are the two sort of pipe that we generally use.
So it was probably built more thicker and heavier than
Yeah.
back in the 30s compared to in the 21st century.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay. So let me answer it this way. Metallic pipe generally get attacked by corrosion. So when we have acidic soil in certain pockets within the city, corrosion occurs on metal. So the fact you have thicker pipe will take a longer time to eat through, versus thinner pipe will take less time to eat through. So the modern pipe, even though it's stronger, is more flexible, is easier to install, and so on, all that, they are thinner. So we actually, we as an industry, utility-wise, across the country, we're actually beginning to see some of the, what we call early failure of the modern-day ductile iron pipes because the thin wall assembly.
Okay, and I noticed like with the Monument Street sewer problem that they had down there, that there was, you all took out quite a bit of piping and replaced it. My question is, I guess it's a question that many of the constituents that in my district have asked. When they remove that pipe, I mean, we hear the price tag of how much it's going to cost, in order to improve those streets. Much of that old pipelining from yesteryears and heavy still sells on the market. I mean, at one time, they was going around stealing sewer inlets and taking them down to places trying to get money from off of it. I'm just sort of figuring, how much money do we get from a return on those elements that were damaged? And I mean, we're talking about water main breaks everywhere. So if it's more so like me hiring a contractor. I have a gold bathtub in my house, I would say. That's not true. But if I had one and I brought in a contractor to replace it, well, when he comes in and replace that tub, do we allow him to take the old tub and we get nothing back from it? I mean, it was just a crack. I mean, it's still gold.
Well,
And
certainly,
there's
I
still
mean,
a value in it, and there's money that could be put back into from that.
Right. I mean, certainly for our maintenance crews, when we go on there, make these kind of repairs, and then we take the pipes out, and they do go back to what we call scrap metal bins, which we recycle that and get some money back. And the contractors generally is in their bid price, so it generally costs about $2 million per mile to replace. You know, they're going to figure in how much they can recoup in terms of, which will ultimately lower their bid price and all that. So it's straight economics, and that
I know
would be
that.
reflective.
Remember, and when I worked at Montebello, and I don't even want to get into the history. Well, let me just bring it on up. I mean, this is insider's information. I mean, when they were building those places back then, they were building those Montebello and Ashburn. They were building those places with brass and copper. I mean, you're talking about thousands of pounds of brass and copper. Then it would have, when they built those locations, it was little or nothing to build. But you can't build, prime example, if a house that was built in 1920 for about maybe $5,000 or $10,000 now, if you have to get it insured on today's market, would be over $150,000. So that means the weight of the element must have increased over the years. So what is happening with that old, and we have a lot of city buildings. I'm not just going to place this on the water department, but we have a lot of city buildings that was built back during the 20s and 30s with all of this brass and copper. And I've never heard anything about the dispersal of it, where it went, what happened to it. I mean, it's like a lost treasure. Montebello, when I was working up there was a group of guys that they incarcerated because they was taking chunks. They was taking so much, they was taking it to the point where if you see them driving down Harford Road, their trunks, the trunks of the car was actually riding the ground. And we're just talking about the small fries. I'm talking about what happened to the real large 500, 1,000 pieces of copper and ore. And this is before your watch, so I know you wouldn't have the answer to it. And I don't hold that against you. But when I left there in 1995, there was still a whole lot of that copper and brass. And I haven't heard anything about it. I mean, some of that can go into some of these programs to help people with low incomes and try to get them to catch up with their water bill.
Well, I mean, the fact that Montebello is 99 years, we have not done a major rehab. In all probability, those copper and brass are still there. And since we haven't done anything to it.
Take a tour.
Yeah, so I would certainly take that as a note when we do go into the rehab and see what we can recoup.
Thank you, Mr. Chow.
Thank you.
We'll bring you back for a minute. We'll have some other questions, but we want to get the public to come up. Let me quickly, though, personnel. So the new meters you're putting in, does that cause an increase, decrease in utility meter readers? What happens around that?
Say that.
As you put in the new meters,
Okay.
what happens in terms of personnel? You know, we used to have, I guess we still do have, dozens of meter readers that go out. Does this eliminate some of those positions, or does it create positions in somewhere else, or how does that impact the meters, the new meters?
Well, I mean, at this point, my stance on that is that we're going to be retraining them.
Okay,
Some of them will be retrained for the AMI system.
okay,
The fact that the county is going with AMR, that means require drive-by. We still need meter reader to drive out there to do their thing. Unlike the city where basically the signal gets sent, we get to read. So some of them will be retrained for that purpose. Some of them will be retrained to be able to maintain these higher technology AMI system. And then the residual one will be retrained, be absorbed into elsewhere within the department. I mean, we have vacancies. I certainly, right now, I'm not looking at laying anyone off, but I do believe expanding their skill sets and by retraining them and then make them do some other productive things for us is the way to go. We're certainly on that path.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to, did you say something? I'm sorry. Okay. By the way, we're joined by Kara Kuntz, who's legislative representative staff to Council President Young. She sits to the far right of this desk. Holly van der Graas, I'm not sure if I mispronounced that. I'm sure I did, by the smile on your face. So.
That's okay. I'm a big girl. It happens all the time.
Okay.
Hello, and thank you for having me here this evening. I'm the executive director of Blue Water Baltimore, and we're an advocacy organization that's focused on water quality as well as improving quality of life in Baltimore City neighborhoods. I'll be very brief. I just want to underscore the need for infrastructure funding. When we talk about some of the problems, and you've heard a lot of statistics from Director Chow, it's important to remember we're talking about raw sewage in our streams and our waterways. We're talking about flooded basements and flooded neighborhood streets where quality of life is really impacted, as well as the public health. So these are big price tags, and they are very, very necessary, not really just for water quality, which is near and dear to my heart, but to be improving quality of life in Baltimore City neighborhoods. I think also one of the important things about the infrastructure spending that has been requested and is now in place is we're very pleased to begin to see this heavy construction schedule being rolled out. We're seeing that progress is being made, and we do believe, in talking to the thousands of citizens we engage with, that everybody understands infrastructure is failing. It's not just waterway infrastructure, it's bridges, it's roads, and we believe that by communicating clearly with the public about what they're going to be receiving as a benefit, how their dollars are being well spent in an open and transparent manner is what citizens really need to get behind infrastructure spending, not just for a cleaner harbor, cleaner bay, but really for better quality of life, property values, and economic prosperity in the city of Baltimore. And Blue Water is here to help convey these messages. We work with Department of Public Works on where their money is going and how it's being spent. And so we're here really to add our voice of confidence in what's happening next for infrastructure spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Yes, Council President Young.
Thank you, and we do appreciate what Blue Water does. But do your group advocate to our federal officials that these unfunded mandates, we cannot sustain them?
Yes, we do. We actually work a lot with the federal delegation, and this evening's presentation reminded me that I should check in with DPW relative to what needs there are. We are very fortunate in having a federal delegation that will often support what the needs are here, but sometimes they do need to hear from their citizens, not just the agencies, and we're here to help bring that voice to the table.
Okay. Again, thank you. Appreciate it. Kim Trueheart.
Good evening. I'm Kim Trueheart, a resident of Baltimore City and a very concerned citizen. Thank you for holding this hearing. And true, it's only an informational hearing. It's long overdue. The City Council and the Board of Estimates did some unprecedented stuff in 2013 in regards to the water rates. You approved a 3-year rate increase, which means there's no conversation annually about how much you're going to gouge us. You just gouge us for the next 3 years, and we have no say in it. So this hearing is giving us an opportunity to let you know we don't like what you did in 2013. Furthermore, we don't like what you did in 1978 when you enacted Ordinance 941, which says that the water and wastewater utility needed to be set up as an enterprise fund that was self-sufficient, and it's been referred to here this evening a couple of times. I think you need to repeal Ordinance 941 and then figure out another way, because every time the Bureau of Water and Wastewater wants to buy a new Cadillac, they come and tell us we got to pay for it. Now, I don't know whether it needs a Cadillac or a Chevy, but I don't get a say in that. Neither does anybody else in this city. But all we know is we're going to pay for it. I think there has to be a better way. I think that we are intelligent enough people to figure out that we can participate in this conversation. Ordinance 941 says that the Board of Estimates annually will approve the rates and the fees that the Bureau of Water and Wastewater charge. And then it says that they will be based on recommendations from the Finance Department and DPW. I'm going to propose something really novel. We got the Planning Commission, we got the school board, we have all these boards and commissions who supposedly work on our behalf. This water and wastewater thing is the most expensive stuff we got going on in this city. Am I not right? Their budget is the biggest item, next to the police department, in this city. But yet we don't have any real scrutiny of what they do. Okay? I'm going to propose that you really consider establishing a water commission that looks at what they're doing, that scrutinizes what they're doing, that makes sure that they're not buying that Cadillac when a Chevy will do. Mr. Chow talked about this evening an integrated planning framework where he has identified 1,400 different projects, and he's prioritized them, and he's scheduled when they're going to start and when they're going to end, and how much money he's going to ask us for. I want to see that. Have you seen it? No, you haven't seen it. No. Somebody needs to look at it. Stand up a commission of citizens. And you can bring some business people to the table also, some engineers here and there, maybe some from professors from our engineering school down the road called Morgan, right, who come and help look at what this group does. I like this man. I really do. But I still want to look over his shoulder and see what he's doing. Okay, and I think you do too, because right now there's an expectation that you are doing that. But based on the conversations this evening, you don't have any more clue about what he's doing than I do. And that's sad. And I think we need a commission, just like we have a public service commission that oversees what BG&E does and supposedly is looking out for my interest, which is laughable. Why don't you stand up something? Why don't you revise Ordinance 941 to help us? So that recommendation that goes to the Board of Estimates, Mr. President, will come to you from the Finance Department, the Department of Public Works, and then this commission that you're about to stand up that's going to look and scrutinize. Because there needs to be a group of smart people, smarter than I am, who's looking at what goes on. I truly think that is how you help the people of Baltimore City. The meter replacement. I would have thought that you would have asked him how many people signed up for the insurance. Because I think that's interesting. We went out and we told everybody that they need to protect themselves because we're probably going to hire a contractor who's going to screw up your pipes. And we're recommending that you buy insurance. Now, this program is about to start, right? If it is, have we done enough advertising and marketing of this insurance program to let people know they need to buy it, or did we just have one photo op for you know who? Because I think all I recall is one photo op. So now he's about to roll out this program that's going to screw up people's pipes. And you suggested insurance, but you don't even know how many people bought it. Do they need help buying it? Do you care? You don't care. Oh, never mind. Let me go to the next item. All right. There is a significant increase in the debt limit that these folks have just gotten. Okay? Significant increase in the debt limit. Is anybody looking at that? Tax finance, you looking at that? Because it scares me, the amount of money they want to go borrow. It really does. Even though, somebody at Standard & Poor's has said that, we went from AA- to AA in our bond rating. I think that's good. But when they start, hocking everything, somebody ought to look at it. But y'all gonna stand up this commission for me, right? Y'all really gonna do that to oversee what's going on. Last week on the Board of Estimates agenda, Mr. President, you approved a revenue contract, I believe, with the Department of General Services, which was in fact answering your question, Councilman Branch, about brass. I think it was a revenue contract that as buildings were torn down and things across the city, that anytime there was brass involved, that there's a company that would go reclaim it and then pay us something. Okay, now I protested that because I wanted to know how much per pound they were gonna pay us and the process that was gonna go along with that. So somebody is thinking that all of this material is recyclable and can actually produce money for us. What a novel idea. Okay, so last thing I want to say is, y'all need to really help us. There are citizens who are struggling. And this enterprise fund that we know as the Water and Wastewater Bureau may be fine for the general fund because no money has to come out of it. But that means that every dime they need has to come out of our pockets, and we don't get a say in it. So somebody needs to scrutinize what they spend the money on, and that's not happening. Establish a commission of bright people to validate that what Mr. Chow is doing makes sense, that the schedule makes sense. Please. We don't need to kill everybody in this city and send everybody packing that looks like me. And I know that's what some people want to do. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to report out on Monday. This is just an aside. So just telling you that we want to report out Monday. By the way, just one point of clarity. I don't know if there was a bit of confusion to the public at the beginning of Ms. Trueheart's comments, but the City Council actually does not vote on water rates or not. It doesn't come to this body at all, ever. Ever, right? It goes to the Board of Estimates. But John Floyd, please. But thank you for your comments, Mr. Trueheart. I think what you mentioned, the Water Commission is something that we should take under study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joan Floyd, also Baltimore City resident and concerned citizen. The thing that has bothered me for quite a long time, and I appreciate, thank you for the opportunity to say it tonight. It seems to me that I never hear the word conservation at these occasions. And that really bothers me. There is no financial incentive for us to conserve water in the city of Baltimore. And people who do choose to conserve often end up paying for water that they haven't used. And then I want you to think in particular about the senior citizens. The number of senior citizens who are living alone. They're not using the amount of water they're being billed for. and then they have to come in and get the discount to help them pay, so they, so they get a discount, so they don't have to pay all that money for all that water that they're not using. So I can't help but think that we should be looking at a use-based system, and I don't understand. It just doesn't seem to ever come up. Now, we've heard that it's been a mistake over the years to defer maintenance until the time when we have a failure. That's been the wrong way to go. It's been expensive, it's been harmful, and now we're going to have to change that. Why would we want to wait until there's an actual drought situation to talk about and learn about and institute and encourage conservation, water conservation? I mean, Mr. Chow did talk about changing the culture. And my question is, isn't that a change in culture whose time has come? And I'm not just saying it tonight, I'm actually asking it. I would very much like to have some idea of what the department thinks about the issue of conservation, because they don't talk about it. So they must have some sort of position on that, bias against it or something. But I would really like to hear the issue addressed. And maybe tonight's not the time to do it, but I really think we need to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Council members, is there any other? Those are the only names I have to testify. Did anyone else wish to testify who may not have signed in? If you like to, we'd like you to come forward now. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate. Councilman? Go ahead, sure.
No, I just wanted to address the issue that Ms. Floyd raised. The Water Department will tell you, and I did it both in the hearing and I do it constantly to them, asking the question about basing the cost on usage. So it has been discussed. Just want for your information.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank the director in the Water Department. I mean, if you've been listening over the past few days, I think it's up in Ohio where the allergy in the water is, and then you taste our water is some of the best in the country. I also want to go on record for thanking them for reaching out to people who, well, their family members have, after passing, have passed their properties on over to them. They're over 65 years of age. They're trying to keep mom and pop's house that may be worth about $25,000, $30,000 a year, but they're on fixed incomes, and they've been crossing the line and working with those people in order to do it, because from the way it's set now, it has to be within the name of whoever the house is registered in. And they've been doing a magnificent job in my district working with people and with other issues. So I really, Director Chow and your staff, I really want to appreciate everything that your staff has done. I mean, your administration, I mean, I have to tip my hat off to you guys. Thank you so much.
So we also thank you, but I got to mention, frankly, Mr. Chow, that the water bills are the Achilles heel, frankly, not just of your department of Baltimore City. It is the #1 complaint that I and many members of the council get. Not only the escalating cost of the water bill, but the errors that are part of the water bills and the, frankly, poor customer service that follows when folk try to get satisfaction on those water bills. I know that it's improving. We understand that. We just hope that it improves more faster, frankly. But the customer service piece is something that I hope you're continuing to address. I just get folk from all over the city, uptown and downtown, who find it very difficult to work with our customer service when there are errors on the bill, and they're sometimes asked to take off from work spend a whole day, possibly, because they can't make an appointment and come in and see someone at an appropriate time so that they could go back to work, or some errors that could be corrected, frankly, it seems, over the phone. Example, someone receiving a quarterly bill of $500 gets one for $60,000, and then it's told that that's correct. It's obviously an error somewhere. Having said that, we do thank you for the service that, on the whole, DPW is giving, and has given. But I think that still is, as I said before, an Achilles heel, the water division. Not that we don't have great water, not that we're not functioning well, but that part of the customer service is a continuing problem, at least from this councilman's office. Thank you again. We appreciate everyone who have come out, and thank you those who are joining us on television live and on the tape versions. And we'll say goodnight, and we will be bringing this bill out on this coming Monday with a report of the findings that we've heard here this evening. So we're ending this hearing as of this moment. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.